What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I try and help you guys keep on top of the macro developments coming out of the world's #2 economy. If you're watching for the first time and you're interested in that sort of content, and if you want to be just as informed as my clients, maybe consider subscribing. For everyone else, it's good to see you. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm sorry that there wasn't an episode over the weekend. Unfortunately, this time of the year is probably the busiest time of the year for me work-wise. Until basically the beginning of January, I'll probably only be able to get one of these out a week, but I am trying to get two a week out if I can. But anyway, let's just jump into this week's content. As always, guys, it's a massive help if you smash the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm, and it tells people that this is decent content, and YouTube will hopefully recommend it to them. And of course, as always, I'll put my Patreon details in the description below for anyone who wants to go the extra mile. There seems to be a lot of attention in the international media at the moment on Beijing attempting to change narratives about the origin and the spread of COVID in the initial months and in late 2019. Now, we have been following this attempt to push different narratives domestically and internationally for over 6 months now, so we shouldn't be at all surprised by what we're seeing being reported about narrative shifts. Like I said, we've been discussing it since the beginning of the year. Also, before we jump into the main stories on Taiwan, of course, has had a fairly good year in terms of its performance. It really just knocked COVID out of the park. Another interesting piece of news coming out this week for any Taiwan fans out there. It seems for the first time in several decades, Taiwan's economy will grow faster than the mainland economy. This hasn't happened for many, many years. So well done, Taiwan. It looks like you've had a fairly good 2020 in terms of performance, at least. Of course, next year the mainland economy will shoot back up past Taiwan, but it is an interesting fact of the week. Not worth a full story, but I thought I'd cover it here. But that aside, let's just jump into this week's China Update. Okay guys, let's start with Hong Kong. On Wednesday of last week, 3 pro-democracy activists were sentenced in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Among them was the globally recognized Joshua Wong. Wong was sentenced to 13.5 months prison for his role in the protests last year. Alice Chow received 10 months and Ivan Lam was sentenced to 7 months. The following day, the founder of Apple Daily, Hong Kong-based pro-democracy newspaper, was denied bail on fraud charges and ordered jailed until April of next year by the court. We all know that the international reaction was largely of concern. What was the mainland reaction? Well, here is one fairly representative view. Quote, "The verdict shows progress in Hong Kong's judicial practice, which has shown a tendency towards overlight sentencing, but is now showing legal deterrence to secessionists." End quote. Over the weekend, former lawmaker Ted Hui, who has fled to the UK amid a police investigation in Hong Kong, said his British bank account and other local bank accounts were suddenly frozen for him and his family in Hong Kong. On Monday of this week, Hong Kong police confirmed that the accounts had been frozen due to, quote, misappropriating money, end quote. On Monday of this week, the US sanctioned another 14 people tied to the national security law in Hong Kong, including a Politburo member in Beijing. All 14 individuals who were sanctioned are vice chairpersons or vice chair people of the National People's Congress Standing Committee in Beijing. Quote, "These individuals and their immediate family members will be barred from traveling to the United States. Their assets within the jurisdiction of the United States or in the possession or control of US persons will be blocked, and US persons are generally prohibited from dealing with them." End quote. Last Wednesday, the US House of Representatives passed a bill that would prevent companies that refuse to open their books to US accounting regulators from trading on US stock exchanges. The legislation won unanimous backing in the Senate earlier this year. On Thursday of last week, new rules put into effect by the Trump administration drastically curtailed travel by members of the Chinese Communist Party and their immediate families to the United States, cutting the duration of visas from 10 years to 1 month. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying called the move a, quote, escalation in political oppression against China by the anti-China extremist forces, end quote. On Thursday as well, Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal entitled, quote, China is national security threat number one, end quote. His words are very representative of the intelligence community in the United States and to a large extent the State Department in the United States under the current administration. Quote, as Director of National Intelligence, I am entrusted with access to more intelligence than any other member of the US government other than the President. If I could communicate one thing to the American people from this unique vantage point, it is that the People's Republic of China poses the greatest threat to America today and the greatest threat to democracy and freedom worldwide since World War II. The intelligence is clear. Beijing intends to dominate the US and the rest of the planet economically, militarily, and technologically. Many of China's major public initiatives and prominent companies offer only a layer of camouflage to the activities of the Chinese Communist Party. End quote. Last up on China-US, on Monday, the State Department terminated 5 programs conducted under Section 108A of the Mutual Education and Cultural Exchange Act, which allows US government employees to travel using foreign government funds, saying that the programs were, quote, disguised as cultural exchanges, end quote, by the People's Republic of China. Okay, interesting story here. One of China's largest online apartment rental platforms, Danke, whose name means literally eggshell in Chinese, has gone bust. Now, it is unclear how many have been affected by this, but a China Youth Daily story quoted an employee as saying that in the Beijing market alone, Eggshell, Danke, rents from 40,000 landlords and services over 110,000 tenants. This company has gone bust, taking money from landlords, money owed to landlords, and the money taken from tenants who have signed long-term contracts with them. Employees are threatening to sue for unpaid wages, and the company faces disputes worth over 3.4 billion RMB, approximately $500 million US, of unpaid debts, including 1.6 billion RMB of loans to Tencent, which is the company that owns WeChat. Tencent-backed WeBank, 1.2 billion RMB owed to landlords and renters, and 600 million RMB due to contractors rather. Chinese media is reporting that this company collapse has spilled into the streets across China in recent weeks, with angry tenants clashing with landlords. That bank I just mentioned that was owned by or backed by Tencent has said that it will give Danke, or Eggshell, tenants who borrowed from the bank to pay the company for the long-term rent. The bank will give them repayment holidays until the end of 2023. Danke's financial stress emerged earlier this year as the pandemic cooled the rental market in many cities across China. Then in June, the founder and CEO was detained, which crippled the company's fundraising efforts, leading to collapse of the company's highly leveraged business model. This mess affects a lot of regular people, and a lot of regular people have lost a lot of money. Chinese media is reporting that at least one young man who was a renter has killed himself due to, quote, losing everything, end quote. Over the weekend, People's Republic of China Vice Foreign Minister Yucheng gave what I think to be a very, very important speech to Chinese-based think tank scholars about the nature of Chinese diplomacy for international engagement and PR strategy going forward. I think it is important for us to look very carefully at this speech and what he is saying, because I believe that he is setting up a framework that is going to be used by diplomats going forward, not just diplomats, think tankers, academics who engage internationally, whether in the media, at conferences, track 2, diplomatic talks, whatever, going forward. It's a very long speech, and so I'm just going to touch on a few of his comments for brevity's sake. If anyone does want the link, I'm going to include it in the description below, but it is in Chinese. I've translated, it's been translated here into English. As we listen to this, keep in mind this seems to be the endorsed PRC narrative for international diplomatic efforts. So we're going to see a lot of these points, which basically they re-evolve points that we've been hearing for years, but this sort of articulation of the narrative is what we're probably going to be hearing a lot more going forward from Chinese diplomats and those who are engaging with international media or through the state-run media apparatus. Quote, in the face of this great epidemic, great turmoil and great changes, We are all thinking and discussing what to do and where the world should go, and more consensus is gradually forming. Since the beginning of this year, the international anti-China hostile forces have wantonly attacked and suppressed China, tried their best to blame China, violently interfered in China's internal affairs, fought fiercely against innocent Chinese enterprises, deliberately attacked the Chinese Communist Party of China and China's political system, and coerced other countries to contain and confront China. For this kind of suppression and containment by any means, we can't submit to humiliation and compromise, and naturally we have to carry out tit-for-tat struggle. The new coronavirus pandemic came out of nowhere, with China bearing the brunt of the dark clouds. The pandemic did not become China's Chernobyl moment, but rather a shining moment for the socialist system with Chinese characteristics. There are many discussions on the wolf warrior diplomacy. Putting this label on us is at least a misunderstanding of Chinese diplomacy. You know, China has always been a country of etiquette, and peace is the most important thing. It has never provoked others, nor has it ever gone to other people's homes, nor has it ever been in other people's homes. Now it is people who come to our door to show off their weapons, interfere in our domestic affairs, and verbally slander us. We have nowhere to go. We have to stand up and defend ourselves and firmly defend our national interest and dignity. Obviously, the wolf warrior diplomacy is actually another version of the China threat theory, another discourse trap. The purpose is to not let us fight back or respond to curses and to give up resistance. I suspect that those people have not woken up from their old dreams 100 years ago. We can see here just how powerful this constructed national myth of historical humiliation continues to be in buttressing these nationalistic narratives. And here are some more here. Quote, in modern history, and to the PRC starts China's modern history from the so-called Opium War, First Opium War in 1840. In modern history, because we cannot express ourselves well, others described us as a yellow peril and sick man of East Asia. To this day, they are still taking advantage of the discourse power formed in history to stigmatize and demonize China. This shows that although we have made considerable progress in expressing ourselves, it is not far enough. PRC experts and scholars should conduct academic research as well as go to the media to voice their opinions, which is the requirement of today's time in China. I am confident that the experts and scholars at this symposium will be able to contribute their insights and demonstrate their unique achievements for peace and development in the post-epidemic era and for China's diplomacy in a new era. End quote. Okay guys, that's China Update for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Wherever you are, I hope you're staying safe and staying sane. See you next time on China Update.